Spotify does not want podcasts to be background audio anymore. It wants them to become one of your daily media habits. That is the real story hiding underneath Spotify's 2026 Investor Day. On the surface, this looked like a fairly standard corporate event. New product demos, strategy talk, long-term growth framing, and a lot of metrics. But if you line up what Spotify actually said about podcasts, video, monetization, interactivity, and user behavior, the pattern is much more interesting. Spotify is not treating podcasts as a side category that sits next to music. It is treating them as a strategic layer that can increase return frequency, deepen creator relationships, and help the platform become a bigger part of everyday life. That distinction matters. For years, the easiest way to talk about Spotify was simple. It was the default music app for a huge part of the world. Podcasts were important, yes, but often still described as an add-on, or at best a secondary battle against Apple Podcasts and YouTube. That framing feels too small now. At Investor Day on May 21, 2026, Spotify laid out a view of itself as a broader media company. The recap page described a business moving from recommendation into what it calls an era of generation, powered by a large taste model and trillions of daily taste signals. The company also emphasized scale: 761 million active users, nearly 300 million subscribers, and a product that wants to fit into more moments across more devices. Inside that bigger story, podcasts are doing something especially valuable. They add more days of engagement. That line from Spotify's co-CEO remarks sounds simple, but it is strategically loaded. In media businesses, there is a huge difference between being a product people use for long sessions and being a product they return to almost every day. Spotify's argument is that podcasts, combined with music and audiobooks, increase the number of times users come back across the month. And when people use all three verticals, Spotify says those users are engaging almost every day of the month. That means podcasts are not just content, they are retention infrastructure. Now add video. Spotify says more than 500 million users have streamed a video podcast, and that figure is up nearly 50% year over year. That is not a tiny experimental behavior anymore. That is a huge installed habit. And Spotify says those users engage more, use more devices, and spend more time across podcasts, music, and audiobooks. That is where the explainer really starts. Why does video podcasting matter so much to Spotify? Because video changes what a podcast can be. Audio alone is powerful. It is portable, intimate, and perfect for commutes, workouts, chores, and downtime. But video adds another layer of value. It gives creators more expressive range. It gives fans stronger parasocial connection. It makes clips easier to share. It makes sponsorship inventory richer. And it opens the door to a viewing habit that can stretch from phone screens to TVs and laptops. In other words, video podcasts can behave like audio, social content, and lightweight television at the same time. That is a much bigger category than old-school podcasting. Spotify clearly sees that. Its 2026 podcast update is not only about hosting shows, it is about making podcasts more interactive and more native to the platform. One of the clearest examples is the new feature that lets users ask Spotify questions about the podcast they are listening to or watching and get answers in real time. That means fans can clarify a point, explore something mentioned in the episode, or keep learning without leaving Spotify. This is subtle, but it matters. Platforms win when they reduce exits. The old behavior might look like this: hear a topic on a show, open another app, search the web, maybe never come back. Spotify wants to keep that curiosity loop inside its own environment. Here's something interesting. Ask a question, get context, stay engaged. That turns a podcast from a one-way stream into a more active media object. And once you believe that is the direction, the rest of Spotify's strategy starts to make more sense. The company also announced creator sponsorships inside the Spotify Partner Program and introduced memberships as a way for creators to build recurring revenue directly from their most engaged fans. Those are not random monetization features. They are infrastructure for a more mature creator economy. Think about what Spotify is trying to solve. If you are a creator, video podcasts can be expensive and time-consuming. Cameras, editing, guests, set design, clips, thumbnails, distribution, audience growth, brand coordination. The format gets more powerful, but it also gets more operationally demanding. So Spotify has an obvious problem. If it wants more serious creators to invest in video podcasts, it has to make the economics work. That is why sponsorship control matters. That is why memberships matter. That is why a platform-owned monetization stack matters. Spotify wants creators to believe that if they bring their best recurring shows into the ecosystem, the platform can help them earn in multiple ways: ads, direct fan support, premium relationships, and better discovery over time. This is where the business logic becomes more interesting than the feature list. Spotify is not just competing for listening time. It is competing for creator commitment. If a creator can post clips everywhere, host video episodes somewhere, monetize through partnerships, and deepen fan relationships inside one platform, the platform becomes harder to leave. That is exactly the kind of flywheel internet companies love. And Spotify has another advantage it keeps talking about: context. The company does not think it needs to win by building the world's best frontier reasoning model. In the co-CEO remarks, Spotify basically argued that the deeper edge comes from applying general AI to something proprietary and personal: taste. That is what the large taste model idea is about. Spotify believes it knows what people return to, what moods they have, what devices they use, what kinds of sessions they build, and which combinations of music, podcasts, and audiobooks create habit strength. That means podcast strategy and AI strategy are not separate stories. They are connected. The more podcast behavior Spotify understands, the more it can personalize surfacing, recommend the right show in the right moment, connect users to adjacent formats, and make the app feel like a smarter companion rather than a static library. This matters because modern media competition is not only about who has the content, it is about who best predicts the next piece of content you will actually choose. That is why Spotify keeps talking about days of engagement, not just minutes in a session. A lot of big platforms chase time at any cost. Spotify's executives try to draw a contrast there. Their claim is that Spotify earns recurring use across meaningful moments: the morning commute, the workout, the dinner prep, the evening wind down, the story before bed. Whether or not you accept that framing completely, it tells you how the company sees the market. It wants to be present across more daily contexts than a normal entertainment app. And podcasts are perfect for that ambition, because they are flexible. You can listen passively, watch actively, dip into clips, follow a weekly host relationship, or subscribe more deeply if memberships become compelling. Few media formats move this easily between background and foreground attention. That flexibility is incredibly valuable. It also explains why Spotify's podcast bed is not really a direct copy of YouTube, even though video podcasts naturally invite the comparison. YouTube is excellent at scale, search, discovery, and the broader creator economy. But Spotify's pitch is different. Spotify wants podcasts to fit into a multi-format personal media environment, where music, audiobooks, social listening, personalization, and subscriptions all reinforce one another. That is less about one viral episode and more about becoming part of a durable routine. There is still risk, of course. Video podcasts are becoming crowded. Discovery can get messy. If every platform starts chasing the same creator formats, the space could flatten into sameness. There is also the challenge of not overwhelming the user. If Spotify becomes too visually busy or too aggressively monetized, it could weaken the calm utility that made the app sticky in the first place. So the company has a balancing act. It wants podcasts to feel richer, but not chaotic. It wants monetization to feel creator-friendly, but not cynical. It wants AI personalization to feel helpful, but not invasive. It wants video to expand behavior, but not make the app forget what works about audio. That is a tricky product problem, but it is also why the strategy is worth paying attention to. Because if Spotify gets it right, the payoff is bigger than podcast growth. It gets a stronger creator ecosystem. It gets more reasons for users to return. It gets more surfaces for premium differentiation. It gets deeper ownership of attention moments that used to belong to radio, television, YouTube, or generic social feeds. That is why the most important Spotify story in 2026 may not be music at all. It may be the company quietly turning video podcasts into a bigger business layer, one that helps transform Spotify from a listening app into a daily media operating system built around habit, taste, and creator relationships. So, when you look at these 2026 announcements, the key question is not just whether video podcasts are growing. The better question is this: can Spotify turn podcasts into the connective tissue that holds its whole ecosystem together? Music for the mood, podcasts for the relationship, audiobooks for longer engagement, AI for timing and personalization, memberships and sponsorships for creator economics. If that stack starts to work at scale, Spotify stops looking like a category leader in streaming audio and starts looking like something broader, a platform trying to own more of the media moments people repeat every week. And in internet platforms, repeat behavior is where the real power lies. That is why this matters. Spotify is making a bet that podcasts, especially video podcasts, are no longer just content sitting beside music. They are becoming a daily media layer. And if that layer keeps growing, the next big fight in media will not only be about what people watch or what people hear. It will be about which platform becomes the default place they return to, again and again, across every device and every ordinary moment of the day.